Hey everyone, welcome to another session of LinkedIn Live. We are excited to have Jared Barol, an accomplished GTM operations and sales leader, with us today. Jared has over 15 years of experience helping SaaS companies scale and grow internationally. Most recently, Jared led GTM operations at Salesforce, where he was instrumental in operationalizing strategies that grew international revenue by 200%. He has a proven track record in optimizing GTM processes, reducing operational costs, and accelerating sales efficiency. So, welcome, Jared, and let's dive in.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Right. Very quickly, right? Given your successful career in GTM operations with Salesforce, Reputation, and other high growth companies, uh, what drew you to focus on international expansion strategies, and how has this shaped your approach to building high impact GTM strategies?
The honest answer is a very early one. I remember I was very young, so still in probably elementary school, and I was learning about career days and such at school. And I remember saying to my dad that I want to get paid to travel the world and meet new people.
Right.
And so I sort of probably made my career. And shortly after college, I left the U.S. and started my first company in Eastern Europe, and then second, third, fourth, and some work in Germany and Israel, and help companies growing businesses globally. And then that just started that career path for me.
Right. Got it. Okay. Um, and like, and so you started. I saw you started your own company. Talk to us a little bit about that, right? Like, which is like helping companies expand internationally. What was the experience like? I know you got acquired.
Yeah. So, you know, this process of starting your own company, as you know, can be painful. And so my business was a professional services firm, and pros and cons about professional services is you generate cash flow almost immediately.
Mhm.
Cons are your cash flow is all that you have. There is no IP usually that you're developing that has a meaningful value. Exits are a good case is something slightly north of a 1x multiple. So it was fun. It was a great experience. So one of the things that really hit me during that was how many companies from all corners of the globe want to try and converge in the same regions, however. So the amount of relocations and company transformations I did from Eastern to Western Europe, from Asia to Western Europe, Middle East to Western Europe, same to North America. North America, it's always the same three cities. It was very interesting, and I started building out frameworks for how do you launch businesses in 6 cities in the world, which is more or less where that ended up being. Um, and that's not to say that there are not inverse scenarios. And I work with a lot of people who did the opposite, moving to Singapore, moving companies to Hong Kong, and moving to Shenzhen or Shanghai or Beijing, depending on the different industries. But I worked from east to west normally. Uh, Look, I think that the approaches that really stood out for me, things I took with me, things I still coach with the companies I work at and consulting clients are three things. One, you have to have a customer centric approach. You're entering a new market with new buying cycles, with new buying behaviors, and you need to build. The rule of 70/30 is common. So 70% of your product you build globally, 30% you build for local use. Same is true for your marketing strategy. Same is true for your sales strategies and how you deploy it. You might have a system and process that you have from your home office, but as you're expanding, you need to cater to that local market to some extent. And you're doing this again, using your local strategy, think global, act local, and that's scalable frameworks. There's scalable frameworks you need to build out across your business, because to rebuild every time you want to target a new market, you're not going to have the operational capacity to do that as a small or mid-sized business. Frequently I see companies starting to expand when they hit, let's call it 50 to $100 million out of the US. And typically that's the other English speaking countries in Western Europe, plus Australia. Not all the time, but as a rule, I would say it's again 80/20. It's fair to say. And a lot of these companies, they think from their home base and they attack the new markets in that way. At Salesforce, one of the things that we encountered was in our healthcare business, for example, there were limits on what we could expand into the UK, for example, due to single payer healthcare. So again, think global, act local. Healthcare in Europe, healthcare in the UK are single payer. You can't sell to that the same way that you sell to a US based healthcare provider. To use an example. Also, analytics and market data. Your strategies need to be informed by data. Saying that I want to open a market in Europe and just doing it is a great way to lose a lot of money very fast. Not every product has a great fit in every country, in every market, as it was built initially.
Mm-hmm.
There was a food distribution called an Instacart competitor company that I worked with out of Latin America, and they were looking at ways to expand into Europe. And they very intelligently realized that they need to partner. And they need to build out partnerships with other food delivery networks across Europe. Otherwise, their product isn't going to compete, not from a localization perspective, not from a user experience perspective, and not from a buying perspective as well in that other market. For everything from payments processing to the end user experience, they needed to change for that market. And so they found that partnering was a way for them to drive that. And they found that through robust research. They hired a few different firms to do market research. They also tried to sell directly and fell. And they found out the hard way and the easy way at the same time.
Right. And so, Jared, let's talk more about this, right? So you're saying international versus local, and think local is obviously you're saying for the international markets. When is the right time for companies to think of going international?
There's a couple of different answers to that, and I don't think there's one answer at all. I think there's a lot of answers. It depends on your company strategy. So, there's a CEO that I have been talking to recently. Is a Series B AI red tech company, and they think a lot about should they attempt to expand to international markets? If so, how? And rightfully, he says, look, the US, there's plenty for us to do here. We have not nearly penetrated the market that we want to. We see tremendous opportunity, and we're having great impact on the market as well. Why would we diversify our strategy, increase our expense ratio, and target new markets that we haven't achieved our initial goals here in our local markets? I think that's a really good point, and it shows real focus from the CEO. There's another company speaking to recently. Let's call them low hundreds of millions in revenue, and they are thinking about how do they double. And so for them, it's okay. We haven't penetrated the local market. However, we want to put a time frame against this. And so what we're thinking about now is maybe we should increase our sales into international markets and start bringing that from single digit millions to double digit millions in revenue as part of our overall expansion and growth strategy. I think both answers are correct. It depends on a couple things. It depends on one, what time frame. So what growth do you want and how? Is it organic or inorganic? Do you want to double your company? Are you on a more a sustainable growth path? Let's call it. Another one is time frame. Is there a deadline to this? Maybe you're private equity backed and the fund runs out and the fund turns in 3 years or 2 years, and your board wants an exit. Well, that somewhat dictates the strategies that you need to have, and same is true for venture backed companies. So time frame matters as well.
Right. Now, given these variables, right? Like let's say there's a Series B company, like you said, right? And they are saying there's plentiful to do in US itself. When would you start recommending to companies? There are multiple variables, right? Hey, these are some broad guardrails. And then again, with PLG motion, it becomes very different. You can go international from day one, right? It's PLG, anyone can come, sign up, $100 product, they can use it. Again, the product obviously should work in those countries. But the question to you is like Series B and sales-led motions, if you are advising somebody, you'll be like, when do you think will be the right time for them? Based on all these variables you just listed, like organic and inorganic and, all the other stuff, fast growth versus sustainability, all of those things.
I think when you hit a point in your business that you want to start. So, okay, it's a kind of a case. There's a couple different cases where this would make sense. One is you hit a point in your business where you want to grow, where you want to start growing very fast, and you have hit a stall point in the past. If that's true, then it's something to consider. Now, another thing you could consider is changing is adding products, expanding your local ICP. It's not the only tool you can deploy to generate revenue, but it's a tool you can deploy. And so, if you have seen very frequently, tactics drive strategy. So what I've seen frequently are companies from the UK who want to buy a US targeted product. And then there's one reference customer. Now there's two reference customers, three reference customers in the US, in the UK, and now you need to hire a CSM. So you're going to hire someone locally to support those customers. Well, you already have a CSM, so maybe you add a salesperson to the team and start attacking that market directly, and you've accidentally entered the market. That's a very common situation to happen. Another one is you buy a company that's a US-based company that has an international presence, and you're not going to turn it off. In fact, they have customers there that you can cross-sell the acquiring company's products into. So that's another way. So the answer is complicated, and I really, there is no one-size-fit-all. I would say if your company is looking to expand revenue rapidly, it is something you must consider. If you are looking for controlled, scalable growth, you might, not always, wait until you've exhausted a larger part of your existing market, successfully or unsuccessfully, before looking at more expensive markets to enter. Remember, even though talent is cheaper outside of the US, the actual entry into the market is incredibly expensive.
Right. And then if you're going there, right, like let's get into the go-to-market brass tacks. Like you're a company, let's say there's a company which is 50 million plus in revenue in the US.
Yep.
Thinking international, how would you approach go-to-market for let's say you pick UK as the next market, right? Obviously, like you said, first thing you have to test is your product fitment. But let's say you do some testing and you're saying the product with some changes can fit, and we're going to commit to that. What is the GTM layer you will put on top of that? Outbound, inbound, partner-led, PLG.
Partner-led growth is a great way to start on any international strategy. It's significantly lower cost. You're able to test waters. It's typically what I see recommended. Again, not always, but partner-led growth would be the first thing I would be looking at for an outbound motion. Usually, one other comment to that: at $50 million, most companies do not have a strong partner ecosystem. So what I would be thinking about is how do I develop my partner ecosystem holistically at that stage? Between 50 to 150, for example, to start to develop and deploy a partner ecosystem and leverage that to test new markets as well. Where you see success and where the data and the market research shows that there is an opportunity, that's then where I would potentially invest to do for direct sales and outbound sales in the local market. So let's just play this through. $50 million, you start working with cloud marketplaces, and you build out a partner ecosystem. At $75 million, you're saying that we're being somewhat successful. You have a few bites coming out of the UK and potentially other places in Western Europe. And you have to service those customers initially. So you have a partner network now. You have existing reference customers, and you have in-market customer success, and you start doing in-market sales.
Right.
That'll be followed up quickly through sales development, local field marketing, and it starts to grow organically in that way. At that scale of a company, tactics have to drive strategy, because a strategic deployment is only possible. So think of it this way. We're talking about organic growth in a market. It takes longer. It's probably more expensive in the long term, in the sense that it takes you longer to achieve a similar revenue potential than if you went all in on the market on day zero. But you're generating cash flow along the way, and you're proving out your product, you're proving out the business case. Whereas, Salesforce launched an office in Dubai. Now, I remember a few years ago when we were starting to talk about what that looked like. The plan was, we're going to have data centers, we're going to have sales organization, we're going to have marketing, we're going to have customer success, we're going to have sales development, we're going to have architects, we're going to have professional services, and all at once, more or less. No, obviously it's several out. That's what you can do when you have money. And it's faster in the sense that you have a full force on the ground in that market to start selling to and servicing large enterprise. Whereas a small business, $50 million, can't do that. It's far too expensive. And they don't even have the resources or know-how in their domestic market to do that as well. So it's different approaches for different size businesses.
Right. So understood. Could you talk to us about like the Salesforce experience, right? Like the 200% revenue growth for Salesforce Industries. First of all, what is Salesforce Industries? And
So
what were the strategies and frameworks you used to achieve this growth?
yeah, sure. So most people here have heard of, the health cloud, financial services cloud, or retail, consumer goods cloud, energy and utilities cloud, and so on. But those all in the Salesforce parlance roll into a single operating unit called Salesforce Industries, led by an incredible leader. When I was there, and he knew every line of every product by heart. It was really impressive to be in a room with him and hear him talk about
And
it.
how many were there?
Products. We had, I think, 7 product lines serving 33 subsectors.
Wow. Okay.
Um, and so, when I joined that group, our international revenue was not. So think of it like this: you have you have 7 different product lines. Of those 7 product lines, in any company, you're going to have some that are more mature and some that are less mature. And so what we did is we built out maturity models first for, how do we consider these different product lines? So what does big look like? What does small look like? And what do they have? What do we expect from them? If you have a small product line that hits 100 million in revenue, 200 million in revenue, 300 million in revenue, at what point do you start deploying additional resources to support them? And so we standardized that functionality. Then we standardized how we talk about the product and how we talk about the markets, and so that sellers in dispersed geographies would have the same language and content localized that we have from our home office. Remember, think locally, right? So you think global and act local. So we build out centralized strategy, and then the regional teams adjust it. We built out capabilities for enablement that were, again, consistent across all mature product lines. And if it was a mature product line, it was resourced, and that was a commitment the business made. And I think that's something I don't see at a lot of companies, where the business will make a commitment to one product. For example, okay, we have a healthcare vertical. It's going to be a fully verticalized team. Well, except we're not going to do customer success there. Well, maybe we won't have a field marketing manager for them. Well, and this starts breaking down what that actually means. And then when the business looks at the product line and say, "This isn't working. Why are we even in this business?" Well, you didn't support it. And so I see that a lot. Salesforce did not do that. They do not do things half of the way. They go all in when they go all in.
Right. So these seven lines and 33 products, right? Like,
Yeah.
how were you guys organized? What were the GTM strategies which worked? What were some of the things you tried and did not work? Can you tell us more about it? Like, it's almost like what part of the playbook can you share with us?
So what I would share is this: that there's let's we break it into 3 different buckets. One is partnerships. You need local partnerships. You want to grow international revenue, then develop local partnerships.
And how do you do that? How do like a company which has not got that partnership network, like
Mhm.
MSPs, SIs, like cloud, putting yourself on the cloud marketplace and working is understood, right? Like Salesforce, HubSpot, all
Yeah,
the cloud like Google Azure, and GCP Azure and AWS. But like, what about how do you get that network of MSPs, managed service providers, or SIs, system integrators? Any thoughts on that? Like,
yes. So this is somewhat of a separate topic of how do we develop a partnership ecosystem, and it's a
yeah,
great topic for another conversation. But it's a separate
absolutely.
structure, because the assumption is if you're leveraging partner networks to go international, you've already built your partner networks. You have to. You can't start a partner network. You can't start building a partner network while targeting a market that isn't your domestic market, that might have different languages, that might require local legal entities to even begin having conversations. So when I've at 3 other companies where I help them build out partner ecosystems, we start with their local offices with smaller SIs and smaller ISV partnerships, because to get in the door at Accenture, it's what, 10 million or 100 million. You have a very large line of business already to have a relationship with them.
And
So,
how do you get that list of ISPs and SIs?
well,
Like, how did you get that?
what I'm saying is you have to start small, and you
Yeah.
start with smaller smaller SIs, not the GSIs, and you build out your own partner ecosystem domestically wherever your company is located, and then you leverage that to start attacking other markets that they're entering. So, for example, there is a consulting group that I do some work with here in the Bay Area. Now, I personally would love to do some more work across Europe. I've done, last year I had a few different engagements where I spent 3 months helping companies in Spain, in the Netherlands, and in the UK. I want to do more of that type of work as a consultant potentially. And so what I'm doing is leveraging the different partnerships that I have here in the US to help work with their customers that they've already developed. Now, that's not their primary market. I'm going to make up a scenario here. I don't want to name names, but you know, if there's a company here that has a customer in Germany, I would like to work with that customer. So I help the company here, whoever the account manager is on that customer that I want to work with. I teach them my pitch, I teach them the value, and I help. If they let me, I'll go along with them to do the first sale. And so I support them on their sale to a target customer they have in a foreign market. And they probably also have local partners. And you try and leverage this to link through. But you can't do this at scale, right? You can't do this with 1,000 different cloud providers. You pick one or two partners that you want to have a strategic relationship with. And another thought to this is a lot of businesses, well, a few years ago, this is not less popular today. A few years ago, it was popular to acquire professional services teams in foreign markets to help, well, in local and foreign markets to help support implementation of a SaaS product. Less popular today for a whole lot of reasons. Cost basis not the smallest amongst them.
Hmm.
But that would be another way to expand, is that you require professional services teams that service multiple different product sets across multiple customers. And what you've also done is bought access to this book of business. And so I would think about what can you do to leverage other business lines to help you get into a existing set of customers in a new market.
Right. Understood. And one one more thing, like, what about reverse international? Like, international companies looking at US go to market.
Yeah.
Any advice for them?
So I did this for 10 years roughly. And the advice is it's expensive.
Hmm.
Commit and do it, or don't commit. The number of companies that I've worked with who began an expansion in the US market only to afterwards realize the cost of talent, the cost of customer acquisition, and what that means when you're paying out in one currency, collecting in another, and hey, you're paying a lot more than you're collecting. There's also tax implications. So it changes the structure of your business. Period. Going internationally, when you come to the U.S. and you're from, again, say Eastern Europe or places in Asia, your currency valuation significantly impacts what you can achieve.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be very cautious with that. Instead, what I frequently would recommend, is let's say you're a European company that wants to enter the U.S. Are you capitalized to do this? Yes, no. If yes, then move forward. If no, then you build out a strategy and a plan for deployment. You assume maybe not the best case scenarios for your expansion, and you raise funds against that plan. And that is the intent of your raise. And it's dedicated, and you can negotiate tranches based on performance. It's better for the investors, and to you as well. It's better because you haven't given away all the equity as well. So
Sure.
there's you build in these stage gates into that strategy that enable you to not risk it all in one go.
Mm-hmm.
If let's say you're coming from a region that has a currency that is less favorable towards the US dollar, I would suggest doing a stepping stone. You go from a non-English language to an English language. So maybe you go into Western Europe, maybe UK or Australia first. Test your product, you iterate your product against buyers in that market. And then from there, you do make a decision on where you go next. I don't always recommend going from South Korea to the US, for example. It's Similar buying cycles, similar buying styles as well. So it's interesting. However, the way that products are used is very different. And I've dealt with a number of customers, spent a lot of time in Seoul a couple of years ago, helping companies think about that process. And frankly, that was my advice: is, you know, to have this be part of your mid-range strategy, but not your short-term strategy. Let's find cheaper areas to enter where you can test and iterate your product, and then move further. And the same is true, by the way, in the inverse as well. Uh, did a little bit of work going from the U.S. to Japan. It's a different set of products, different buying cycles. Enter with a partner that's local is very frequently what I recommend. By the way, the same is true in the inverse, going from
Yeah.
Japan, South Korea to US. Enter with a partner. They'll know the market. They'll be able to help give advice on how to change your product for that local market.
Mhm. Right. No, that makes a ton of sense. We definitely need to do that session on how to build a partner network in that case, because that seems like the most prudent strategy
Yeah,
when going
it is.
international.
It's I don't mean to say it's easy. It's not.
Right.
There is nothing easy in any of this. However, when you're entering a new market, doing so with people who've done it before is going to significantly de-risk. Remember, like the key term to remember here is risk-adjusted return on investment. How
Right.
can you de-risk any move you make, especially these expensive moves? Partners help.
Right. And then another key question, right? Building the team. A lot of more failures, more misses than hits, always. Uh, how do you go about building the key leadership team in a foreign market where you have actually like limited exposure?
I'm trying to think of an example where this is not the case, but typically your first hire is someone you've worked with before
Hmm.
at a previous company, through a previous partnership, what have you. Sometimes it can be from an acqui-hire as well. I think of a couple of recent companies I've worked with where that's been the case. They entered a market because they acquired a company in that local market, and the CEO of that company is now your local leader. We have three examples off the top of my head. And however, let's pretend you are you're organically growing into a new market. There are a few different ways you can do it. You send someone from your local team to be that leader. You hire someone locally, or again, you do what I was saying before about working with someone else, another company or partner that you have in the local market. I have seen the first one be more successful initially, second one be more successful long term. Meaning, you send someone from your local team to help set up your business and make those initial hires. But then you have that initial hire in the local market, and you need to trust them.
Hmm.
They grew up there, they speak the language, they're going to hire for locally, and you need to have someone you trust. But having someone from your local company go and set up that entity, make sure it's the right hire, it fits your business culture, that's very important. And so that would be roughly the setup that I'd recommend. Obviously, exceptions exist.
Right. And finally, we are almost on time, Jared. Um, how do you see AI wave, which has started over the last 2 years, impacting internationalization, if we have to call it?
It's an interesting question. It's one I've been thinking about a lot, and I think it's really early to tell. There are uh, so here's why I'm hesitating. I don't know what regulation is going to be passed around utilization of AI in B2C channels over the next couple months. After this presidential election, when the new president comes in, what's their policy going to be? We look in Europe, European elections, same question. And so it's a little hard to tell what the exact impact will be. One thing I could say is it's probably going to be cheaper to do certain activities. Like localization so translation is going to be easier
Yeah.
and cheaper. There used to be large industries around translating product and translating messaging, and I don't know what the future of those industries are. Um, I think that hiring globally is going to be much more common. So companies like remote.com, Deal, and so on, I think there's a good opportunity for them. And I also think that there is 100% is going to be an optimization on how to go to market. So your market, like building out marketing strategy for a local market by someone who's never been there is going to be possible. Now, it won't be perfect. It'll be okay. But for your first entry and your first attempts, it might be enough until you find a marketing partner in that local market. So I
Right.
think the short answer is I think we'll find it cheaper in some ways, but I don't know, and it's a little early still.
Got it. Well, yeah, thank you so much for your time. We are dot on 9 o'clock Pacific. Yeah, look forward to continuing the conversation. Probably have another one on partner network building.
Sounds
And
great.
thanks. It was really helpful.
Pleasure was mine. You have a great rest of your day.